So, hello everyone, welcome. After a long time, we are updating our channel, and it's because I'm excited about some new technology, or let's say some new programming language. It is called Mojo. Many of you might heard of it if specifically if you're in the field of AI or data science, and uh, and also for those people who already experienced or at least know Python in some level. It is some kind of exciting news. Basically, Mojo, well, it comes with this type of, let's say, promise, some kind of programming language for all AI developers, as you can see here. And basically, what they say and what they promise, or at least state, is they made some kind of programming language that has the flexibility of Python, has the, let's say, straightforwardness of Python. And in a meanwhile, it is quite fast, just like C or C++ program is. One of the uh, depending on your case, one of the downside of the Python is when the project gets uh, big and complex, uh, it might become pretty slow or pretty resource demanding, and it's due to the fact that it is an interpret based kind of programming language. Basically, interpret based, we have two types of programming language: compiler based programming languages and interpret based programming language, which Python is one of them. So, in interpret programming language, we have a script, and this script always, let's say, interpreted at the time of the execution by the Python interpreter on the local system. It means, as you know, that whenever you want to, let's say, run a Python code, you have to have the Python interpreter installed on the host machine, so it will be running the code. And because of this fact, that at the time of the execution, Python is somehow translating the code or running the code, it might have some negative effect on the speed. So this is one of the downside of the Windows. Of course, one of the downside of the Python. Of course, there are some kind of projects like Code On. Let's say, if I don't know if you're familiar with it, so it's called Code On. Yeah, it's some kind of project on GitHub. They promise that they can compile Python code natively. Uh, Before that, there were some kind of, let's say, maybe you have heard of, for example, PyInstaller or things like that, that they made some kind of executable file for Python, but they didn't really make a executable file as a compiler. Basically, they just attached, let's say, some kind of small Python code to your script and then pack it as a one standalone file. Nothing was actually translated to the machine language. Then this codon arrived. They can compile somehow translate the Python code to the machine language. And if you do so, it would be pretty fast, but it's in the earliest stage, and it is not, let's say, covering all the Python syntax, and it still has, let's say, some road to reach. And this is one of your options. And then we have Mojo here. Okay. Mojo is somehow, if I want to summarize it, they combine, seems like they combine the flexibility of Python. And if you are familiar with Rust programming language, they have some kind of Rust-like syntaxes that makes it more, let's say, uh, mm, let's able or capable to instruct. I mean, the variables you can define, you can explicitly say that, okay, this variable should be like this, or do the memory management and everything like that, and then compile your code and run it without need Mojo module or Mojo program to be installed in your computer. So that was like a short summary of it, of what we are basically, what is Mojo and what was the problem of Python, what was some, let's say, workaround for compiling Python, and then Mojo. Okay, so if you want to use Mojo, one of the things you can do is like just go to this modular website, modular.com. This is official website of Mojo, and just create an account there. And then we can just start with the, let's say, how to install it, and let's say getting our hands dirty with Mojo. So basically, when you go to the Mojo, and you can go to Mojo website, as you can see, then you go to the download section. Of course, you have to register there. Then you have a page like this, depending on when you are watching this video. So basically, you can, let's say, have it on Mac, Windows, Linux, and everything. So I'm assuming that you are, let's say, using Windows, because it's also include how to do with Linux as well. So let's say we are going to work with Windows. So at the moment, the, let's say, Mojo doesn't natively support Windows yet, which means you need some kind of either a virtual machine or using Microsoft native WSL, that is some kind of native simulator or emulator of the Linux, that can create a Linux environment within the Windows. And so basically you can use, as I said, like a something like VirtualBox, and install a Linux on it, or just use natively Windows ones. So if you are on the Windows, let's say 10 or later, I recommend you to do this. And if you are on the earlier version of Windows, for example, Windows 7 or something like this, you can just install VirtualBox and go and download VirtualBox. When you, let's say, install it, then go and grab a ISO or of your favorite Linux. I recommend to use Ubuntu for this purpose, but you can use any of them, no matter what. And continue with the rest. But if you are using Windows 10 or later, I suggest you use this method approach. Basically, you have to, if you are not familiar with the WSL, I will, let's just briefly cover it, how to enable it in Windows, and then continue our work. So basically, if you go to your control panel and then apps and features, it's basically the place we installed. You can like uninstall your softwares. Then you can go to a section about, let's say, adding and removing Windows features. So for example, if you go to the programs and features, you see something like this. And then you can go to this section, like turn on and turn off Windows features. And if you do so, just let me. Okay, you can see it here. And you have to just activate, there is something like Windows subroutine for Linux. So you have to turn it on and then press OK. Basically, it activates the subsystem for Linux, which means like Linux code can be translated to the Windows, so the Windows can run it. Basically, just see it as uh, some kind of, let's say, simulator for Linux on Windows. So when you do that and you are finished, then go to you can Microsoft Store and simply just Google Ubuntu, something like this, Ubuntu, and just find the latest version and like this. For example, I installed this version, Ubuntu LTS, means long-term support. You install it and that's it. You have a native, let's say, Linux on your Windows. So how to work with it? So basically, if we close it, and here just if I write Ubuntu, so I have Ubuntu here, right? So basically it is, let's say, some kind of Linux terminal inside Windows. And I can just type any Linux command, just let it for to run. Yeah, as you can see, for example, if I write pwd means which folder I am at the moment. I'm here, so it's Linux. So until now we make some kind of we just, let's say, established a Linux inside our Windows. If you are already with working with Linux, you just start from here. Anyhow, then using curl, we just install the Mojo module, just like this. For example, you just copy paste it here, here, oops, something like this, and then you, yeah, and it wants your password probably. I already installed it, that's why. Maybe for me it would be a bit different. For you, it might take a bit longer. So that's it. We have installed, let's say, modular for now. And then we want to install Mojo SDK, okay? Software Development Kit. Then we copy this command and here. Sorry. Yeah. And you install it and that's it. And if I type, for example, Mojo here, then I have Mojo. It says, welcome to Mojo. If you see this, then you can make sure it's you're good to go, okay? And I press Ctrl C just to close it. So that's it. Okay. Now, it says just press code and space dot, but I want to say more universal way. So you can simply install VS Code. So you go to the VS Code, download, and you just go here and it's some kind of, as maybe you know it already, Visual Studio Code. Sorry, I just let's say, like, it's my style to talk about everything from the scratch. Maybe many of you know this and know better than me. So go and install it. Basically, it's some kind of IDE made by Microsoft, which is open source as well. And it can support almost all the languages. It has many extensions that, based on your need, you just install that let's say programming, that extension for any, it could be for programming language, for help and anything, and you're good to go. And so install it, and let's, for example, get it started. Okay, and just one thing before you do anything else, go and run all of these commands inside your Linux. These are taking care of Mojo paths, and just copy each line and Yeah, just copy paste it. Sorry, I copy pasted bad. It's eco. Copy paste this line, and this line, and then you're good to go. Okay. So I assume that you have installed the Visual Studio Code. If when you install Visual Studio Code and you also install, let's say, Linux and Windows, sorry, subroutine for the Linux, then you can, from here, you can connect to your Linux, let's say, kernel, and whatever code you do here will be done on the Linux. Just you simply click here, and as you can see, it's like connect to WSL using distro. Okay, so when I do that, it's a yeah, I have Ubuntu and good to go, and I'm here. Okay, very good. So I just go and I can, let's say, open a file, open a folder, or whatever. I just say, for example, yeah, here here, good to go. And let me delete everything. Yeah. So now, if you want to be able to your Visual Studio Code to recognize the Mojo, you can go to the extensions here and search about Mojo, and here, and you can install it. Right? If you install it, then you're good to go to, let's say, code with Mojo on Visual Studio Code. You will have something like this, and you can do your coding, and that's it. So let's start with our hello world example. So as you can see here, Mojo has almost nice documentation. You can start and you can see what is the, let's say, difference between Mojo and other programming language, and the differences between Python and Mojo, and so on. So basically the extension for Mojo files is like Mojo or Mojo. Like if we want to write a code, we just can simply write our code and save it in such a file, and then we can just do the coding. So let me go here in my files, and I assume I don't have this, and I'm going to start from the scratch. Okay, I just create a new file. Then I write, for example, hello dot mojo or mojo. Oh, I have a hello. Then hello, then hi, right? Not so much creative, but let's go with it. So this flame, this cool flame, is somehow logo of the Mojo programming language, and yeah, that's that's a good thing to know. So basically, here, if you don't have the terminal here, you can go here and just create a new terminal. I just want to make sure that I have Mojo here installed. Yeah, as you can see, let's welcome to Mojo. Control C to cancel it, and so on. So one thing about Mojo is, if you remember in the, let's say, Python, you were simply just write print, for example, hello world, right? But here you cannot do this. One thing about Mojo is it's strictly functional. It means you have to put everything in a function, and you cannot write top level type of lines that belongs to no function like Python. And of course, it supports all the Python like syntaxes, and it will be supporting it according to their statement. But somehow some structures are changing, and it also have the indentation, means like, for example, you can have, for example, if you remember in Python we have indentation and everything. Here we have everything as well. If, for example, in Python we define a function with def, for example, myfunc, here is the same, you can do this and so on, but I will let's say talk about it later. Okay, let's just see, go just with a simple example. As you can see, uh, here there is something called fn. Okay, basically, as I said already, just like Python, you can define a function with def keyword. Also, you can define a function with fn in Mojo, and they add some kind of, let's say, structure, some kind of keywords extra to, let's say, traditional way of the Python functions, that you can have more control over your variables and basically enjoy the power and the speed that Mojo provides for you. So let's just write it, for example, here. As I said, I cannot write print hello world, but of course, if I put it in the fn, let's say main, so just like all the compiled base type of programming language, you have main here. And so it's like basically child of Python and C programming language. And then if I just run it here, okay, if it's not working here and we do it manually. So we are in the folder, okay? So you can just type Mojo, run, the name of your code, hi.mojo. See, you can see here it's written hello world. Okay, I just run the code here with this command. I told you already it is like compiler based programming language, which means I can build my codes as well. By building, I mean that I want to translate this code to the machine language, just like, for example, the way that you do the coding in C, in C++, it will be translated in the machine language, and it would be a standalone executable. And there is no need for Mojo, Python, whatever, any programming language which is compiler based to be there. So how to do this? You just write Mojo build hi.mojo. So rather than run, I just use build. As you can see, something added here for me, right? Hi. So sorry. So here, if I want to run it in basically just like any command-based Linux program, I just like dot slash and name of the program hi. You can see I have hello world, and this hi I can just transfer it to any Linux machine or any virtual machine, Linux virtual machine on Windows or whatever, and run this code without, let's say, Mojo to be necessarily installed there. So then here you can see the main difference between Mojo and Python. And of course, as I already said, it makes it super fast. So let's go and see what else we have. Okay, I already said you can build a code and then run it, and yeah, so on. So, and let's say I just want to, okay, cover some language basic. Okay. One of the other things that Mojo programming language has, of course, all the syntaxes that supports in Python are there, but you have some of more keys to this in Mojo programming language. One of which is var and let. Okay, var and let basically means that, for example, when you define in your, let's say, main function, when you define var and x, it means this x is mutable. What does it mean by mutable? It means, for example, you can do the increment to this variable. Okay, like you can use it in a loop or whatever, and you can uh, let's say behave like a mutable object with it, and vice versa. If you use let, I don't know here if they wrote it here. If you put let, for example, x, it means it is immutable. It means if you do this, it will, let's say, generate some kind of error for you. They do this because they want to, let's say, basically, first of all, it is some kind of uh, explicitly saying that this and it makes some kind this your code more readable, and of course the compiler will compile it more optimized, memory wise or run wise or speed wise. That would be something. As you can see, you have let key and you have var key, and for example, just if we go here and run, let's say, our code, something like this. For example, variable x, which is int, something like this. And this type should be, the capital, don't forget, and it's equal to 1, and x plus equal to 1. Okay, and print x, right? So now if I run it, it should be 2, right? Run, as you can see, 2. But let's now change it to let. If I change it to let, it is already saying, here, expression must be mutable. So, because it makes it immutable. And of course, if I want to run it, I will get some kind of error here, as you can see. So basically, this is one of the new keys that you face here. And so let me change it to var, and now you're good to go, basically. So it makes your code more readable and also more optimized when you do that. So this is one of the, let's say, main keys that you do. Here again, for example, we can define some kind of math type of function, and let's just, I will show you. Let me just, for example, yeah, we have a do math type of code, and as you can see, we say let x to be integer and let y equal to 2. So you might say, why here there is no, let's say, explicitly say, it's not mandatory that when you don't do that, it automatically put, let's say, decide what type of variable it is, and in this case it is int. But of course, using this makes your code more readable. And why we are not using var here, basically because we don't want to do the mute over it. Of course, I can use var here. I can use var here, but it's not optimized. And if, but let me put it let and let. But if I do the, let's say, let, I cannot, let's say, do the increment for my code. Okay, you might now say, okay, here there is an error. Of course, because I have to put it in the main function, main, and then do math, then we should be good to go. Now you can see it is okay. So let's say run Mojo, and we have 3. You see? And yeah. So this is one of the most important, let's say, thing about, let's say, one of the new, let's say, keys in the Mojo that you can see. And also, of course, there are other stuff regarding the functions, how you can deal with the functions in the Mojo programming language. And just like, in Python, as you can see here, in Python you could define the, let's say, variables, what type of, let's say, parameters for your function, and you could even define the output of type of the output of your function, but it was not mandatory. Okay, but in Mojo you have to do this. You have to explicitly say that, okay, this is this type, this is that type. Okay, you can see here. So okay, let me just delete this part, and for example here, let's do it differently. I would just put let, for example, z, which is int, equal to add, for example, 2 and 3. As you can see, since I don't want to mute over it, I just make it immutable z and type of int, and I just put this and print z here. Okay, you're good to go. And also there are some other concepts in let's say functions when it comes to some kind of let's say specific about the Mojo is the ownership of the variables. Okay, ownership of the variable basically means, when normally in Python, if you remember, when you, for example, send some kind of variable inside the function, it always made a copy of those, let's say, variables to the function and do the, let's say, any kind of calculation that you had and then return it. So it was not pretty optimized. So because of that, unless, of course, when you had list, for the sake of memory management, Python always used the same memory as the list was. It means when you were, let's say, somehow modifying a list that you're sending as a parameter to the function, and you were changing that list with the function, it was changed in the original list as well. But it was not true about variables. So that's why they made some kind of, let's say, some kind of concept called ownership. It means basically, you see what was the problem? It means, and how they solve it. It's like if you want to make a copy of it, if you want directly modify it, it means that if you want to, let's say, change the original as well, or if you just want to, let's say, read it and print it and do something, like nothing going to be changed. So that's why they have different type of, let's say, ownership. Borrowed is the default value of the, I mean, when you don't specify it, it's considered to be borrowed. It means you cannot change anything, any variables, if you use it, if you set it as borrowed, or basically means if you don't say anything or explicitly say borrowed, you can the variables cannot be changed. For example, here we are just, let's say, adding x and y and return it. Okay, but what if you want to, let's say, change it? I mean, if you do any change here, it will be, and you want it to be applied in the original variable as well, just like here. Okay, you use in-out keyword. It means the function will modify the original variables as well. It means if I change x here, if I change y here, since these are in and out, a and b here will be changed as well. So as you can see, this will affect the original ones as well. Okay. Then we have another thing, it's called owned. Basically, owned means it makes a copy of the variable inside the function. So it means basically you can play with it, you can change it, the variable, but it will be only remained inside the function. It means you can change it, but when you change it, it wouldn't affect the original variables inside the function, inside, like outside the function. Basically, it makes a copy of it, and you just play with a copy of it. So maybe it could be not very memory optimized. Okay, so owned basically just make a copy and you have your own copy and you can do modify and everything and maybe return the result or not, whatever, based on your case scenario. Another thing that they have, it's unique and it's interesting for me, is called transfer. Transfer basically using this, let's say, up asterisk here, as you can see. When you use this, it transfers the ownership of the variable to the function that you are sending it. What does it mean basically? It means, for example, here, if you for example put, like, let's say use this style and you send it to the variable, the a variable will be deleted. Okay, will be deleted, and the memory that this a was referring to now owned by the function. Okay, it means that then you don't have the access to the a no more. It will delete the a, and whatever inside a now will go to the to the set fire function. For example, should, if I find some kind of example, yeah. For example, let's somehow use this and see how it works. Okay. For example, f and main, and here I would say Mojo. I'm running Mojo, right? So at the moment, let's start from here. I have set fire here that owns, let's say, some kind of string called text, and we are just adding this symbol to this and returning back. And here we define a string and we call it Mojo. And then using setting fire, we're returning it. And so basically it would be Mojo plus fire. So let's run it. As you can see, it is, let's say, plus this one. Okay. So here still the A exists, right? Because I just made a copy of A and send it to the set fire, and here the A exists. But if I use this, sorry, my keyboard, yeah. If I use this, it means I am sending A to the set fire, but A will not exist here because it's died, it's transferred. So let me save it and run it. I should get an error. As you can see, it says, okay, there is no A. But if I delete this part, and now we should good to go. You see? Now it's okay. So basically we transferred it and we killed it. Okay. So that was just basics and getting started with Mojo. Hope you like it, and hopefully we will cover more stuff about Mojo programming language. Thank you for being here. And if you have any question, just comment down below, and see you soon, hopefully.